I kind of went over this topic in my Higan video, but now that I played Star Rail, I want to expand on it and give it its own video. There are some things I want to state first before I get into this video. The only reason Star Rail is in the title is because it's kind of what pushed me to make this video. So I'm going to be using it a lot in my examples and comparisons, but this applies to any impact frame sequence that might be similar. Second, I don't want to come off as hateful towards animators. Their job is to simply take the ideas of whoever and make it move, usually in a cool or interesting way. So let's not perpetuate hate towards people who are simply doing their job within the time they're given. However, I'd like to add it could also be the animator's choice to include or make use of impact frames. Speaking of impact frames are these. I find it difficult to describe them since they can be drawn in so many ways, but generally it's a two-color frame of animation that's placed right before or at the moment of impact. They also tend to be black and white in color. However, recently animators have been incorporating a third color and sometimes not even using black or white. There are also times where animation sequences are done completely in impact frames just because. I won't be providing many video examples, meaning I don't want to fuck around with copyright. What I will do is, for those interested, is to suggest that you go to sakugaboru.com, I'll have it on screen, and look up impact frames. You might be surprised by the amount of impact frames that don't really add anything to an action sequence. So what's my deal with this kind of animation? Well, I actually like these, but my concern lies with how often they're used now. Here are some animations from Star Rail. Not much is wrong here, except the impact frames seem to be the standout parts of the animation. If we take a look at the other aspects of the animation sequences, none of them are really unique or truly creative. Let's be real. So why do I say they stand out? Because it's the flashy part, and our eyes tend to naturally pick out the flashy stuff. Basically, what I'm saying is, these impact frames were seemingly implemented to compensate for an overall lack of interesting animation sequences. But because impact frames are so common in this game, it kinda cancels itself out. This leads to the action animations overall being underwhelming. When I use the word flashy, it refers specifically to effects animation. Tight choreography and swordplay can be flashy too, but for the sake of discussion, I'm leaving that out. Impact frames are used to add a layer of flashiness and impact to action sequences. That's why you'll see them a lot before an explosion, a laser beam, or things like that. As an analogy, I want to bring up the Souls series. Music, especially in Dark Souls 1, is reserved for boss fights. So when you finally do hear music, it helps make the boss fight more memorable because of the contrast between walking through the quiet undead parish and fighting the gargoyles. For comparison, you could go back to Genshin and look at the impact frames during the Liyue arc where Ningguang drops her floating whatever on that sea monster. I'm not going to say whether the impact frames in Genshin are unique or not, but I will say, during that part of the story, impact frames were used sparingly. I can only think of one other example prior to that. Since I managed to bring up Genshin again, I find it strange how Star Rail commits so hard to implementing impact frames for burst animations, while Genshin, to my knowledge, uses none at all. What could it be? Well, I don't know. My guess is that the character movements are more interesting and complex, the shots are cooler, or the effects look fun and creative. This video can apply to any sort of animation that overuses impact frames. Off the top of my head, Demon Slayer, Bleach, and the newer seasons of My Hero Academia come to mind. This is something I used to study quite a bit back in the day, and I still do, but only when I need a reference. Right now, I feel like there are too many animation sequences that blend together despite being from different people, and impact frames are just another piece of the puzzle. We've kind of reached the point where people really value flashy effects. I think that answers the question as to why impact frames are so prevalent nowadays. It's because it's not just impact frames, but rather effects animations as a whole. You know, impact frames, explosions, debris, all that stuff.